Taylor. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too, man. How's your week been?
Well, first of all, can we just make the observation that unbeknownst to either of us, we really coordinate quite well today. I mean, we've got the blue and we've
Oh,
got the facial hair.
the beards, man. I know. I was complimenting the beard. It's like it looks good, dude.
Thanks. I was a little nervous. I've grown it before, but this time around, I was like, well, I'm at the age now. There's probably some grays in there, and
I've
didn't
just
want to see
embraced
that.
it. You just got to
Have you?
embrace the gray, man. It's all right. It's good.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. Stress, right? For the amount of stress I carry around, I think I'd have more gray hair, but I don't. So clean living. Um, my week was good. Thanks for asking. So I kind of have two gigs, right? I do Shopify
Mhm.
consulting stuff and Liquid Weekly, but I also work as a engineering manager for fintech. And I took a week off this week just to have some time at home with the kids and catch up on
Nice.
some personal stuff and some more time with you. So it's been good. A lot of summer fun things. Time at the pool. Like actually went swimming with my kids because normally I don't because I'm too busy. But they've
Yeah,
kind of
that's
ignored me.
awesome.
Got in the water. Yeah, got in trouble by the lifeguards the other day. It's great.
Oh,
So
it's just there's just no fun, or whatever. They're just ah. My
well,
daughter was learning how to swim, and it's like they have those little dividers in the pool, and like
mhm.
she could swim, but she wanted to wear the water wings or whatever, and they're like, well, no, she can't go past to the deep end because she has water wings. It's like, no, she can swim. I can take them off so she can swim back and forth. They're like, that's just the rule. It's like, what? Like, I get that's the rule, but like, I'm in the water with her. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ah, lifeguards.
So I think they're great. But anyway, um, yeah, it's good. All I wanted was to sit by the pool and read a book and eat snacks and not be bothered. And the minute I did that, I was bothered. My kid's
Yep.
like, I don't know what to do. I was like, wait, what do you mean you don't know what to do? Like, we're at the pool. Like, go do something. Why stop bothering me?
You
Kids.
appear to be at rest and peaceful, sir. We would like to
That's
disrupt
right.
that.
That's right. My big thing too is cheese balls. I think I mentioned before, right? I can't
Cheese
remember.
balls?
I talk
No,
about
you
my
have
snacks
not
around the
mentioned
kids a lot.
before.
So
Yes.
my daughter is also a super snacker. My son not so much. Um, and so I was like, Samantha, like, I brought some cheese balls to the pool with us today. She was so excited. So between the two of us, we polished off a whole bag of cheese balls in
I bet. Do
one
you
afternoon.
ever go to like one of the big box stores and get like the giant, like the tub? You know what I'm talking about of cheese balls? It's like
Okay.
guilty. Like, yes, I know what you're talking
So here's the problem and here's the confession. Problem is it's really hard to hide that from your family,
about.
which is what I typically do, hide the snacks.
Yep.
The confession is I did find out a workaround. The workaround is to keep it in the trunk of your car and keep
Oh,
a small Ziploc bag and just
brilliant.
pour enough in the Ziploc bag that you can keep hidden that you need in
Right.
the moment. So,
Because then even if they see you, they're like, oh man, it's almost all gone. Like it's just a little
yeah.
Ziploc bag. My
Well, no, I didn't show
strategy,
them the Ziploc bag
you
so I
did.
could hide that. Like, I know I always keep it hidden, right? I
Yeah.
have a special bag that
Right.
has my crap in
Right.
it. I just keep it in there and they don't know.
It's smart. It's smart. My
Yeah.
strategy is just high places because my kids are still super small and my son is an excellent climber, but you know, I'm also I'm just a little bit over 6 foot, kind of type thing. And so like my wife is like she says she's 5 foot, but she's really 4'11" and 3/4 kind of type thing.
Wow, that's
So,
quite a difference.
yeah, big difference there. And so anytime that I have like one of my snacks or whatever, it just goes up on the top shelf where no one else can find it.
Oh man, Taylor, you're lucky. Living the
So
dream.
anyways, living the dream, that's
Sure.
right. Huge height differential. It'll be a problem when my son is much older and my height too as well. I'm gonna have to figure out a different
Yeah.
strategy because he eats a ton now. I can't imagine when he's a teenager what that's gonna look like. So
So do you have a good week?
yeah,
You guys know mine.
yeah, no, just trying to crank out a couple of fun projects and then close up some things that I've just been trying to close for weeks now, kind of type thing or whatever. So it's all been real good. And I'm personally in the last couple of weeks away, and I've got like a sprint triathlon. It's the first time I've ever done something like that
Yes.
before. So I'm like just over 2 weeks away from that here. So excited to get it done. A little nervous, but my brother's coming in from Pennsylvania, and he's going to do it with me too. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I was thinking of you when I was in the pool the other day. I swam a couple laps It's
It's
exhausting.
brutal, right? It's brutal, right? Yeah. Like if you go swimming for the first time, like if you try to swim laps like for exercise, oh man,
Yeah.
it's brutal the first couple times you do it. You get used to it, but like it is surprisingly rough.
Honestly, my only motivation that kept me going was I know how hungry swimming can make you. And I thought
Uh-huh.
this is going to be great. I'm going to be so hungry. I'm going to eat so many
For
snacks. Like,
those cheese balls, man, they're gone.
well, 6 laps wasn't enough. It didn't really get that much
Didn't
hungry.
really do much for you.
Do you have the breathing thing down? Like I've swam all my life.
Hmm.
I love swimming, but the lap, like turning your head, getting air, not sucking in water. Like I get mostly air, but it's just enough water too that I never really enjoy it.
Right. Yeah, you're no, it's that took a while to get used to. I had so I was dogging on lifeguards earlier, but actually like they've been super helpful at the Y that I go to. There's a he's like he's this kid, he just graduated high school. He was just giving me these swim tips or whatever because he was on the swim team and all this other stuff, whatever. He's going to become a firefighter. Just a really like nice put together. You're like, man, like I wasn't this put together when I was 18. Like what in the world, man? And so, but he gave me actually a bunch of tips, like and things to like practice on, like the breathing thing especially, because it is hard, especially when you're trying to swim continuously. Like I'll swim. For the event, it's a quarter-mile swim. The sprint triathlon's the shortest of the triathlon kind of type things. Well, actually, they do have a super sprint, but I'm gonna say mine is just like the beginner level or whatever. But so like it's a bunch of laps back and forth in the pool. But he had me just like practice. Basically, you're kind of like get these little, I can't remember what they're called. They've got a funny name for them, but they look like these big marshmallows on the end. If you've seen those by the pool, and a stick kind of connects them.
Yeah,
Um, like tiny things, like American Gladiators. They used to use like really big ones to like hit each other with or whatever.
yeah.
But like they're really
They're
really
pool
small.
Q-tips.
Yeah, like that's I don't know what they're called, but that's the best way to describe them probably. But you could use those to like just kind of like swim in place, and against a wall or whatever, and like kind of practice like breathing. And that was actually really
Oh,
helpful. But yeah, because yeah, when you're trying to do in a 25-meter pool, you're trying to do it's like 30 laps or something or whatever to try to get a quarter mile or whatever. So you get a lot of practice in that way.
nice. Well, I recognize we've been talking now for 7.5 minutes, and people ostensibly come here for Shopify. So why don't we take a moment to each kind of share like a highlight of one thing we're working on in the Shopify space, and then I think you and I are going to dig into some of the Shopify Summer Editions goodness that just came out a few days ago.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I just talked a whole bunch.
Cool.
Do you have something ready to rock?
Sure.
Like I know you were working on a really big project and stuff that I think is worth
Yeah.
like a whole episode some other time, but I don't know if you want to like share a little bit about that.
I don't know if people could handle the excitement of this. So I'm in the middle of migrating a large store with like almost 300,000 orders from BigCommerce, which is an awesome name,
Right?
to Shopify. And so it's been a multi-step, multi-week process because what it has involved is figuring out like how to get the data out of BigCommerce because
Hmm.
yeah, you can export, but the way that export works in BigCommerce is just lots of hoops you got to jump through because, for example, you can get the order data, but the order data doesn't necessarily have like any subscription data in it or payment method data in it.
Oh
You
wow.
can get tracking information, but that's like a separate export. So you have to like get that and then combine it with the existing stuff you've already done, which is fine if you have, a couple hundred or a couple thousand rows. When you're talking hundreds of thousands, it just becomes more unwieldy because the tools are slow. Like I, I'm a Mac user. I don't have Excel. I use numbers on the Mac. It's just painfully slow when you get large data sets. And then the coup de grace, of course, is getting it into Shopify or using an app called Matrixify, which is
Yep.
great.
Solid.
It does a great job of queuing things and kind of spreading out the load and stuff. Slow as I'll get out, which I don't think is Matrixify's fault. Like it's just the Shopify API and what it has to
Hmm.
do. But it has a real particular format it wants. And so
Right.
there's basically a 5-step process of like getting the data out of BigCommerce in different chunks, recombining that data locally in my machine. And then I had to write a custom Ruby script to go through and recreate the CSV in a format that Matrixify wants because BigCommerce takes a single order and shoves all the line items into a single cell. Whereas, yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Whereas Matrixify, they expect a separate row for every line
Right.
item, and they even have a separate row for like fulfillment information. And so
Hmm.
it took a long time to kind of hone this Ruby script to create the right format and to deal with some of the irregularities in the data because there's just some of it you have to use regex to parse apart. And so if there's like an extra colon because some random name of a product might have a colon, it broke it and that kind of stuff. So a lot of back and
Mm-hmm.
forth. Finally got that working, ran the import, and it took about 5 days for Matrixify to crunch through it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yep.
know, right? So now I'm at the point where I can download the failures, because there are failures, and work through those. Because I know I'm talking a lot to you, but one of the fun things I ran into is that in Shopify, the email and the phone of the order have to be the same, like unique, right? And so what
Okay.
happens is if you get another order placed by somebody with the same phone number, but they use a different email address,
Mm-hmm.
at least in this import path that I'm taking, it'll fail because it says that number's already been in use.
Mm.
So I have to go through and manually make some adjustments there. Just little stuff like that. Just takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, like I said, I think, and he felt like that was talking for a while, but that was a lot that I think, because I'd love to learn more about that whole process as far
Would you,
as
Taylor? Would you? Because I
I
don't know that you
personally would.
would.
I've done a
Okay.
couple, like none like that, like crazy difficult where I'm having to try to, write a custom Ruby script just to parse through stuff, because I mean I would be calling you for that anyways. But like a lot of mine have been just like WooCommerce ones, and it works great for Matrixify works great for WooCommerce, like super solid, really handy and stuff like that. But I think that's probably just because it's one of the most common use cases for it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure too, like BigCommerce has probably just changed things over and over and over again. And when you're working with that much data, I mean, everything's going to get way more complicated anyways. So, um, but no, that's awesome, man. That's I think that does need to be a whole episode. I think you think other people are going to be snoozing through it, but this is the right crowd for it.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
intrigued.
true.
So,
Captive audience.
uh, but yeah, right. Like, we got you. They could just skip the episode if they don't want to learn about
Oh,
more
don't
about
tell them that.
migrations. They don't. No, that's
They
not an
didn't
option.
know.
You have to listen to all of them. So for me, at least, I've been working on a couple of other things. I'm wrapping up. I've been doing a lot of like this like free gift promo stuff, or free gift, free purchase or free gift with purchase. Oh, I can't even say it right. I've been doing it, but I can't even say it right. Like a free gift with purchase promo. Like I've been doing a lot. So both on the like the back end side of things, and the front end side of things. So, which has been kind of neat. But I don't know what's happened where like this has just been a real big deal lately. So one of the most recent ones that I'm in currently working through another one, but the most recent one that I did, actually we kind of leveraged it through using Shopify Flow, which really
Oh,
handy. Some of the stuff we're going to talk about today related to editions, like Flow is now available on all plans, well, basic and up or whatever, but
that was
slight
plus
little
only,
insight
right?
there. So like last year, before March 2022, because I had to go back, I found like I had posted about this or whatever. It used to be plus only, but then in March 2022, they made it available through advanced and standard plans, but not basic. So after this editions, it's available from basic and on up. So which is fantastic because Flow is just getting better and better, and it's really really awesome. So at least in this instance, had to figure out this deal with actually the client had just folded in like Yotpo for their loyalty program and stuff like that. And, using Yotpo and stuff like that, neither here nor there, not necessarily my favorite implementation or solution, but it's what they're working with kind of type thing. And so we had to figure out a way. They wanted it so that way when someone like kind of like leveled up in this loyalty tier, which is based on spend once they've been in the program, they wanted to just automatically add a free gift to the order, the qualifying purchase order.
Oh, wow.
And so there's these whole bunch of different ways like that we tried to approach doing it or whatever, but because the implementation works based on like Yotpo says, okay, hey, cool, like they got this qualifying event or whatever, and then it adds a customer tag. There's this custom email flow that we're doing with Klaviyo or whatever, and so that was my thought was like easiest thing. Let's just do this in Klaviyo because this is working. But they really wanted on that qualifying order. And so we ended up using Shopify Flow. So there's this option basically where you can go in and you can add an order line item. So to that specific like
Oh, really?
purchase.
From Shopify Flow?
Yeah, from Shopify Flow. So the thing that you have to figure out and work around obviously is if it's a free gift, it's going to have to be a $0 item, or you're going to have to mark it as paid. That just depends on like how accounting and fulfillment have to deal with those different things. But what we did is we created basically a free gift that gets added. The problem that we were running into was the time that it took for the customer tag on that order to get updated to the qualifying purchase event ranged from 5 minutes to 8 hours. And
From
so,
Yappo?
yeah. And so we had to build in like these multiple checks to keep checking that same qualifying order. And so it took a while or whatever, but we finally did it, and it's working smoothly now. Super excited about that. But it's obviously not like immediate kind of type thing because we're relying on that tag to cop in. But it works super smoothly now. Someone gets this qualifying event, and it'll check the order like basically on the hour, like 5 times or whatever, to try and see if that customer tag we're looking for is there. And if it is, then it kicks off the flow where we basically add that product to the cart. Then we have another tag that occurs as well to make sure, like in the future, since we're just looking for that tag the first time, we add another tag and use it as a conditional check down to make sure they've already received the gift. So that way they don't,
Hold on
every single person.
I'm a slow man, so you have to re-understand. So the customer's on the store,
Yep.
they place an order,
Mhm.
that order, and they pay for this order, and that
Mhm.
so now they've reached this threshold within the Yappo, which is a loyalty app, right, where they have a
Yep.
certain amount of spend with the store.
Mhm.
Yappo takes its sweet time and applies a tag to that customer. When
Mhm.
that tag's applied, you're using Shopify Flow to then open up an order. Is it a completely
Not open up an order. So it's on the existing order. So what we're doing, we're using the order created as the
Okay.
action that kicks off the flow. And then it will keep checking that same order. It'll check it like 5 times at different intervals for this tag.
But the customer's already paid the order's been closed in a sense.
Mhm.
But you sneak that in afterwards, and that's okay because it's free. So they don't have to.
Correct. Yeah, they don't pay
Okay.
anything for it. It's free, so they just go. And then what will happen is, within Flow as well, with this add order line item, it will actually, we have the option to notify the customer when it's occurred. So we have a custom message that kicks out that the order's been updated, and it looks for this, and it adds like, hey, this free item was added to this order. You're going to get it with this qualifying purchase. So
Gotcha.
real smooth.
That's pretty slick. Yeah.
Yeah. Since the flow, we've got it down. Even though we've got most of our checks in, now the flow typically happens somewhere between 5 minutes and 1 hour. We haven't had any of those like egregious 8-hour like outliers or anything like that since then.
Sure.
So hopefully that was just the one time, but we have built it in so that way it's a ultra safe kind of type thing.
I'm gonna have to check that out because typically the way I've approached similar problem sets is JavaScript to check conditions and add an item into the cart using the Ajax API, and then a script editor on Plus stores to actually apply the discount to make the item free.
Yep.
But obviously that wouldn't work necessarily in this case, and I think the script editor stuff, the Shopify scripts, is going away.
In favor of functions, right? Mm-hmm.
Which I really want to dig into, which we'll talk about here in a second. But one last thing. So how do you do the check with Flow? Is there a way to like do a feedback or refresh in Flow to keep checking something?
So not an easy way. Like you're basically building in like
that seems like the tricky part that you figured out.
Yeah, that's why I was so surprised how long like a no code solution like this took or whatever. But like so Shopify Flow has really like progressed since like how it was initially like rolled out or whatever. They've worked on it so hard, and it's awesome now. But like you have these options where you can wait, right? So there's this wait action that can occur, and so we can do that where we're waiting for 5 minutes, then we're waiting for an hour, then we're waiting for 2 hours, then we're waiting for 4 hours, and then from there, off of each of those waits, we run our conditional checks for. Is that customer tag there now? No? Okay, then wait 2 hours. Is that customer tag there now? No? Okay, wait 4 hours. So basically like it does all those checkdowns. But you've got an, if then kind of type thing. So it all kicks and flows out based on the tagging features. But it was really complicated because we had to keep running this. I wish there was a way for us to basically be like, if the flow fails, like wait and then rerun this whole deal again. But at least there wasn't an easy way that I could figure out how to do that initially. I'm sure someone else who's like killer at flows would probably be able to figure that out.
Dear listeners, if you hear of something, let us know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Ping me and let me know how I could have done that better, because I spent probably more time than I feel like I should have on that, but it works. It's working really well now, so I'm pretty stoked about that. That was a
Good way to
big win
go.
from that side. But yeah, normally I would do the same thing. Some conditionals based on like you know on the client side, where maybe we're checking for a special like landing page or something like that, something in the URL that kicks off and notifies us
Yeah.
like, hey, we're doing this now. I'm currently working on one where we're checking for the discount code cookie to make sure, check if it's there, and then once the threshold hits, like go ahead and add it in there, kind of type
Nice.
thing.
Feels surprising that, even something like Yappo itself doesn't have similar functionality, but I
I
suppose there's
know.
probably
I was
some
so
limitations on
surprised.
what it can do.
I was so surprised. Yeah, could not believe it. But yeah, that was the
There's your
whole
million
back and
dollar app
forth,
idea.
right? I'm sure there are apps out there, but I don't. A
I'm
lot of
sure.
folks that I work with, at least in the theme space or whatever, they're like, "Can we do this without an app?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can, but like this is what it's going to look like." And they're like, "Okay, cool. I don't want another app." And it's like, "All right,
Yeah.
well, you know, rock on."
Cool, man. Well, thanks for talking us through that. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, not as interesting as data import export, but interesting.
No, you're well. You know, I get all the fun stuff. Yeah, you deal with it. No, I'm super intrigued by
Yeah.
the migration stuff. We definitely need to chat about those, because those are monsters every time you get into them, especially when it's
Oh
the
yeah.
more data you need to move over. But this is a great segue, right, for editions, right?
It is. Yeah. Let's
Did
do it.
you get to actually watch editions, since you weren't like working 17 jobs on that day? Like you were
That's
kind of,
right.
or was that the pool day?
That was that the full day? It might have been. I was half watching it, and then I
Yeah.
was a little confused. This is just gonna show how ignorant I am. Was there one video that was like half an hour long
Yep.
with
It's only
one
like
guy, and that
25
was
minutes.
okay?
It was
Because I kind of watched half of it, and I came back later, and I thought maybe the stream had stopped working or something. It's like, wait, there's got to be more, but it's just
no,
one
everyone.
dude.
Yeah, it was Glenn Coates,
Okay,
VP of product or something, or one of those positions or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, it was just everyone was talking about that. Like, it's so short. There's so much stuff, but like the video was like 20 minutes long. He just was like, here's all the real surface level stuff. I feel like it was just all the
okay,
big shock and awe stuff that he wanted to hit, and then it was like,
and then you're
okay,
supposed to
go
go to the
read the
web
rest of
page
it.
and click on. Okay, but
Hmm.
I respect it. I don't necessarily want to sit and watch an hour long video, but I was a little
No.
surprised. It just didn't come off as like this was the main event. It was more like here's an aspect of it. I was expecting several more kind of highlights. Good.
Yeah, I agree. I was kind of surprised by that too. I kind of did the same thing. Like, where's the other video? Like, this is. I thought it was kind of. Well, I think they've done that in the past, though, right? Like, they've kind of like kicked off and handed it off to other
Yeah.
people, kind of type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't really do that this time. It was just kind of like a, hey, here it is. Go check out this awesome site.
Which is, I guess, okay because in the back of my mind, I was kicking myself all day. I was like, oh, this would have been the perfect opportunity to like try to get some people together to watch this live and have some fun as a community. Um,
I'd have
and
come
then
down
I
to
just
Columbus.
well, right, yeah, we could have done that. Even if I'm thinking online, remote, whatever. But I would have seen you. Could have rented out a restaurant. But then if it was all just for that one little video, that would have been kind of silly. So
Right. It would have been like, oh,
what
okay.
do we do
Well,
now?
let's take turns reading off the cards on here, or
That's right.
something. I guess. I don't know. I
Anyway,
saw some
not to
people
be
doing that.
harsh.
I wonder how big that was. There were some people that did that. They rented out like a restaurant or whatever, or like did a big deal. So I wonder if that was kind of a letdown. I'll have to
Oh, did
ask some
they?
of those that
Okay.
I saw. I saw some people
Yeah.
do that. So yeah, I'll have to ask. Was that like a huge letdown? Like, did y'all just sit around and read then after that kind of type thing? Or, I don't know.
I don't know.
No, but
Well,
it was a lot of stuff.
regardless,
Per
well,
usual,
that's a
it
lot of stuff.
was
Yeah.
so much stuff. Still trying to reel and figure out, and even when I was writing the notes for this, I was like, "There's no way we're even going to be able to cover half of this stuff."
Yeah. And
Um,
don't take this personally. You went to college, right?
yeah,
Okay.
I went to.
Not because that's important necessarily. Well, the reason I'm asking is because I would love to see like some of your notebooks from college. So I bet you took some really awesome notes
Ooh,
based on what you put together for this. It's like certain
I
people
took
are just
killer
note
notes, man.
takers. Yeah,
Hmm.
you're a note taker. I can tell.
Oh yeah, I don't know. That's how we all learn differently, right? And for me, the best thing
Yeah.
always to learn was I would handwrite notes, and then I would transfer them over to computer-based notes after that. So that way I could actually like reference them later on, especially because the longer the seminar or whatever, the less legible my handwriting was while I was trying to like keep up with taking notes or whatever. But yes, I'm kind of a professional note taker.
This is a complete rabbit trail. It's real quick. I'll keep it short. My friend, he bought one of those things. I can't remember what it is, but it's a tablet that you handwrite notes onto, and it
Yes.
automatically turns them into computer notes, whatever. There's been similar products in the past, but this is like a
Yeah.
recent popular one. What's it called? You
It's like
remember? You know what I'm talking about?
remarkable.
Yeah, something like that. You should try that.
I have looked at one of those so many times. Does he like his?
He seems to like it. I always find there's just if you get in any kind of impedance in the whole pen to paper process, it just drives me nuts. And I feel like any kind of technology will do that. But you can't beat having it automatically digitized if you want that.
Yeah, the automatic. That's really cool. Yeah, I bet it's the remarkable. I've looked at this thing so many times, man. Um, but it's almost a $300 like tablet, you know. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like I've really been getting into bullet journaling. So you know, like
Oh.
started putting stickers on here and stuff or whatever. Um,
But
but
I can tell you're really into it when you get to the sticker
when I
phase.
get the sticker face, yeah.
Oh man, I'm so into this. I'm so
I've
deep.
been putting them on my laptop, but then like, you know, I just bought a new laptop this year and I was like, ah, man, I've been like so like
Don't put stickers in.
not putting yeah, you're like there's so many people who are like, don't do that, man. That's ridiculous. But a buddy was like, hey, like I don't put them on my laptop. I'll put them on my bullet journal because then I kind of like helps me actually remember different phases of life. Like, oh, I got this sticker at this event or whatever kind of type thing. Because I'm very anti-sticker, like bumper sticker on cars and vehicles and stuff like that, but not on my laptop for whatever reason. I don't
Dude,
know,
your
man.
laptop is aircraft grade aluminum, handcrafted with love by Apple to be exactly the way they want it to be. Why would you put a sticker on that?
Sticking like a $2 sticker on top of it that I probably got for free at something that I showed up to. So
That's right.
yeah,
$20,000 computer, $2 sticker. Yeah,
that's a real problem.
it is.
You know. So I'm doing the bullet journal thing, but no, something like this would be really cool with the remarkable. I'm pretty sure that I'll bet that's what he has because I've looked at this so many times. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it. Maybe I need to at some point.
Sorry, I'm walking back up the stack. Where did we get here? Oh, right. You took good notes about you.
Yep.
Yeah,
We've got lots of notes.
Share
So
those.
we'll have to break it up, but I think we could probably stick to at least some of the big highlights, right?
Yeah.
Just plugging in my laptop here. Speaking of the laptop.
It's good to charge when you're. Yeah. So what were some of the big ones that jumped out to you?
Oh man. Well, some of the AI stuff is really cool, but I think we talked about we need to do a whole separate episode on AI, and I think that's a big deal. My number one biggest thing that I thought was awesome, which I didn't find out until after because I totally missed it during editions, was this idea that they posted and they've updated docs to for extensions only apps can be hosted on Shopify. So, right, like because they're moving away from a lot of these plus stores. I have like these checkout.liquid customizations, and because that used to be such a big selling point for Plus, so they want to be able to like upsell something in checkout or change X, Y, and Z or whatever kind of type thing. But then when they said, "Oh, we're moving to checkout extensions, and this is going to look so much better, you know, and work so much better, all this stuff or whatever," but we're also getting rid of checkout.liquid. And it's like, oh shoot! Like as a theme dev, right? Like now I'm going to have to try to figure out like hosting and all this other stuff for an app or whatever with these clients that I'm working with, and none of them enjoyed hearing too. Like, hey, the stuff we used to be able to do in JavaScript for free, like you're going to have to host an app for that. And so
Right.
that wasn't really cool for a lot of people. But they did announce that, you know, hey, if it's extensions only or like organizational only apps or whatever, like it can just be hosted directly in Shopify. So checkout extensions, you can just do that directly. I thought that was pretty awesome.
That is very awesome because, you know, to your point, like I'm thinking like, oh man, we have to start reaching for either the whole full Monty, which is, you know, stand up something on a server somewhere, run it, or a service like Gadget, where they can handle most of that for you. But still, it's a pain to have that when it was all in one place and part of the plan you're already paying for.
Right. And I think, yeah, that was a lot of people's beef. But yeah, that was where I had settled. I was going to do Gadget because I've got a couple of buddies using Gadget that love it too, that they've already moved some of those. Cool, so. Yeah, they are pretty legit. Well, Mo is one of the guys who built Checkout.liquid, right? Or Checkout.liquid. He built Shopify Checkout to begin with or whatever. So like dude knows his stuff. and just, yeah, cool people in general.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. I can't wait to dig into that some because I've been wanting to play with checkout extensions anyway, and now it just makes it that much easier.
Right. How about you? That was my big one. That's the one I'm probably like most excited about. There's a ton of other really fun things I'm excited about as well, but I won't hog all the talk time today.
So I'm gonna say the one that I've been saying for like 6 months, and I still have not taken the time to really do anything with in terms of exploration. But the whole Shopify functions thing is really interesting to me.
Yes,
And at first, I kind of
functions.
stayed away from it because it was like Rust only, right? I was like, well, I have no problem with Rust, but I just don't have the bandwidth to go learn another language proficiently at this point. And then they added JavaScript support, I think in beta. Now it's full release, right? So it's like,
Full
okay, the
release.
door is open in terms of, well, I would much rather code in Ruby than JavaScript for reasons, but
Hmm.
at least it's more accessible than Rust in terms of what you have to learn and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so they obviously added a whole bunch of new things around that, some new APIs and some enhancements. And so I think now more than ever is the time for me to really dig in and kind of see how that works and what I might be able to bring to clients in terms of features and functionality that could be implemented using that because it just looks really promising.
Yeah.
Plus, you kind of
And
have to with the script editor going away.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, yeah, for your stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like all that stuff that you were previously running, like, being an awesome, amazing Ruby dev, and us JavaScript people being like, I don't know what to do here, so I'm calling you, kind of type thing. Now, yeah, rolling
Another
that out
job.
to where like JavaScript is full release. Did you see too in that where because they kind of like snuck it in? I feel like a lot of those dev ones or whatever, they don't get highlighted as much. But they did say now that app owned meta fields are going to be supported as well. So you can create meta fields in your apps that are isolated just to your app, which I
Oh.
thought that was really interesting.
Isolated to your app is as in isolated to that particular store instance in your app or isolated from the theme.
Just so I think it's just so that way, like basically you can just basically control how they get used within like the functions that you're using or whatever, and it's so private to your app by default. So it's not
Okay.
necessarily accessible. I'm assuming like if you're trying to pass in something specific or whatever, like you don't want other people to be able to like access those like via other apps or whatever. So it's not going to necessarily clash or like run into that. You can run. It'll have its own. What did they say? It's got its own like metafield namespace
Namespace?
prefix
Okay.
in functions.
So it's
So
like a
that
way for
way,
an app to decorate store data, but have full control over it, so it's encapsulated within the app and immutable from outside the app.
that's what pretty sure is what I understand in the sense
I
of
should probably just read
you
it instead
saying
of
that
asking
way
you, since
smarter
I'm
than
sure
me.
you've seen like probably a 3 minute video. I thought I've had time to read on it yet, but I'm just
Yeah.
curious because like it'd be interesting too, like if you could even if you could access that app metadata from the theme side with outside of the app, but not change it, that could be kind of
Hmm.
cool too. To because then you could sort of work together on both sides from the app and the theme. But I'll have to read about it and see.
Yeah. I don't think it'll
Cool.
be neat. It's just trying to like they're building out like so much other stuff too that I think it's specific that people have like been asking for. So
Yeah.
like you'll
Well,
just be able to like kind of create your own and like leaning super heavily into meta fields, right? Like that's
and
that's
that's always
been
been the challenge.
constant. Hmm.
I feel like in theme and app development is like where do you store state in the system because your front end,
Mm.
sometimes your back end, there's all kinds of limitations of what you can and can't touch in terms of what Shopify stuff, and so you're doing weird things like. Well, I guess it's not weird, but like adding data attributes to the
It's kind of
HTML or
hacky,
shoving
right?
it to cookies or using session storage or whatever, right?
Right.
So metadata and all this kind of stuff finally it just opens up a legit way of storing data that's more
Yeah, my thought is
comprehensive.
like, because like a lot of what you'll do is like run a lot of stuff if it's specific to an order or something like that. Maybe we'll shove it into like hidden cart like line item properties or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that ends up being a thing. But then people
Yep.
get kind of like annoyed. That's like I can see this on the order, like, and it doesn't look good. We had to do that with a builder or whatever one time. We wanted to be able to like make sure it was all like time stamped and associated with each other, but
Yeah.
like they were really annoyed at having to see that like on the orders or whatever because like for whatever reason the extra bit of stuff that was in there for fulfillment wasn't ideal, but it was the best way to
Yeah.
like include it, right? So that way we could like do other stuff with it, but um so yeah, but yeah, big focus on metafields. Just like a more general, there was a note in there too about metafields performing like 4 times faster, So that
Yes.
was kind of interesting.
Which had you run
Um,
into performance issues at all? Like, I don't know how I would even
well, on my end
encounter
of
that.
things, yeah, like as far as, because sometimes, and it always happens when I'm trying to do like a demo. So like a lot of times what I'll do when I'm working with folks is, we'll build something in and use with meta fields, but then like, while you're on the demo, you'll create it. So it's part of the documentation as well as like kind of like showcasing, kind of like the MVP kind of type piece for it. And then like you'll go ahead and you'll like add a new meta field and then you like refresh. Okay, it's still not here, but I promise you it's going to show up. Refresh. About the third time or fourth
Gotcha.
time I refresh, I'm like, all right, I'm going to just pause this video until it shows up. And then like be like, okay, so here it is, or whatever. It's been like 2 minutes for like a meta field to like populate. And so I'm going back into the code, checking to see like, is that working? So I've run into that on my end of things before as far as like, and I'm not sure if that's like, even what they're talking about. But I mean, I would assume that's what they're
Let's
talking about
hope.
when it comes to them
Yeah.
performing more quickly and being available via the storefront API, all this fun stuff or whatever. That's really cool too. Um, yeah, you can now retrieve and edit the data and stored meta fields through the admin API, Shopify admin, accessing meta fields and themes using Liquid and through the storefront API. So,
Nice.
and that was a big thing too. Storefront API, they've removed all rate limits. That was a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal. Because that's not a problem I think that a lot of people run into, but if you run into it, it's a real problem. And so it'd be nice for those use cases to not have to find workarounds or be bothered by that.
Yeah, well, and especially too, they just opened up. Um, they opened up a bunch of other stuff like predictive search, filters, and stuff like that, or whatever, to where like it's more accessible via storefront. So I think they probably had to do that to make sure that that was going
Yeah.
to work okay, kind of type thing.
It is a random thought. Um, all my thoughts are pretty random, but I feel like what we're starting to experience with Shopify is what I saw happen with web development as a longtime web developer. Like when you first got into web development back in the late 90s, early aughts, whatever, it was pretty simple, right? You
Hmm.
write some HTML, CSS was a thing then, not nearly as complex maybe as it is now. Perhaps JavaScript, perhaps not. And you put that file in a directory on a server somewhere, and either you or someone that knows Unix incantations like set up Apache to serve it. And then you're off and running. You want to do
Hmm.
anything else, you just add a form, you're good to go. But there really wasn't that much like surface area of things to learn to do that. Did they
Right.
look good? No. Did they do fancy things? No. But they worked, and that
It
was it.
works. Hmm.
Now web development, I mean, there's so much stuff that you have to learn or could learn around this. It's really hard, it would feel like, for someone to get started in that space. Although you kind of did it a few years ago and you're doing great, so maybe it's not as hard as I think. But it just seems like a lot more. I wonder if the same thing might be coming down the road with Shopify in terms of
Yeah.
when I first started doing it, right? It's like, you got to understand that basic model of orders, variant products, kind of how the themes are stitched together. But that was
Hmm.
it. But now they keep adding all this crazy stuff that's really good, but it just
Hmm.
adds more and more complexity to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it definitely opens it up to where there are opportunities, I think, initially where you do have to learn a lot more, but I also think that
Hmm.
that creates these instances where you can niche down and become like a deep expert in really specific
Oh, for
areas.
sure.
So and we've both talked about like the importance or the benefit and value in niching down. People hear about that a lot or whatever, but I do think that as someone when you're first starting off, it is super overwhelming because there is so much surface area that does have to get covered just to make something like that you is actually usable, right? So you can go super basic, and that's what I like about like so, at least some of these options or whatever. Like a lot of options that got introduced in additions to, it's going to make things way simpler for merchants as well. So it's like I'll real quick or whatever, like native subscriptions and native bundles and stuff like that. Like that's all great and everything that they're going to just introduce something that simple just like automatically for everybody, right? But when you want to start to get to the point where you need to scale or you need to like start building or doing some more unique and creative stuff, that's when you need to start like actually bringing in more people. And I think it kind of works the same way with developers. Like maybe initially you're going to be doing something really, really basic. So whether it's just like adding in a couple of simple controls to a section or something like that or whatever, you might not have to mess with anything related to checkout extensions and all this other stuff or even meta fields until you get to the point to where, oh, okay, like I start to bump into like these problems and now I have to like learn something new. But I do think it is, yeah, a lot when you're first looking at it. It's a lot, I feel like in order to do front end development now, you'd have to know a little bit about the back end. And probably the same thing. Like if you want to be just like a back end dev, I don't feel like you can probably do that without knowing a little bit about the front end too.
I just want to be a rockstar dev. Is that too much to ask?
A 10x developer.
That's right.
Was that what that was?
I'm shooting for 100x. Forget this 10x nonsense.
You're there, man. Just shoot for the 1,000.
I don't know.
Set the new bar.
Oh man. Well, speaking of, did you just mention like some of their basic apps, like subscriptions and things like that? Because that was
I tried to casually
thing.
mention it, like
so
without making it a big deal.
So are they eating the ecosystem? They released a subscription app? What else did they release?
And bundles. So bundles is already available. Subscriptions is not yet available, right? And I should have made this better in the notes. I was going to call that out because there's a bunch of stuff that they announced.
Notes are terrible. You're a terrible note taker. Did I mention that?
Oh gosh, dang it! Oh, I felt so good earlier.
Not like bullet journaling, more like pellet journaling, really.
Pellet journaling. This is terrible. But yeah, so subscriptions is not yet available. Bundles is, and so that is pretty cool. And then I don't know if you've run into this. We started to talk about this a little bit, and then I was like, we definitely need to like make mention of this or whatever. Of Shopify like eating its own ecosystem or whatever kind of type thing, because that's always the initial outcry whenever like Shopify introduces something like this, right? It's just like, oh, there's other apps that do this exact same thing. Why would Shopify come out with their own app or whatever kind of type thing? And to me, that's just it's just a silly. It's a silly argument. I'm going to use the word silly. It's the greatest slap in the face that I can make to these people is it's a silly argument.
You point your thumb at me, sir?
I mean, it doesn't even deserve a response. But it does. And Toby actually responded on Twitter, which I thought was cool.
What did he say?
But
he responded to you personally?
No. So there were people complaining about it, as people like to do on Twitter and why not, or X. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. Very much so, like when like an old grocery store you've always gone to gets bought out by a bigger chain and they rebrand it or whatever, it will always, to me, I always call it the old name. So
do you still shop at Ohio Mercantile?
That's yeah, absolutely. But so on Twitter, like Toby responds to this idea of Shopify eating its own ecosystem, and basically was just like, look, man, like the app is like super basic, works super well, but this is the floor. Like this is just the floor. Like this is what we expect everybody to do. Like it needs to work at least this well, and it means that all these other apps, like y'all have to like bring up your level to at least this if you want to perform well. And that's how I see it. When it comes to that, I think I've seen Shopify do this where they make super basic versions of something like this, but they make it accessible to people. So bundles, subscriptions, like these are like very, very helpful strategies for merchants to be able to like offer products and stuff like that. And so the fact that they're making it available for everybody, it is fantastic. I think it makes it more accessible. But like when you need more, right? Like it's going to be super basic. But when you do need more options, that's when you have to reach for another app and those sorts of things. So because there's Shopify product reviews. Like, have you worked with anybody that uses Shopify product reviews? And if you go and look at the reviews on the review store, they're not great. Shopify email, same thing. Like any merchant who is doing like any serious amount of money where they're paying for some apps or whatever, they're not using Shopify's own apps for stuff like that. So to me, that's, again, it's silly. It's a silly argument.
Well, it's gotta be tough too to be in Shopify's position, right? Because you started off, however many years it's been quite a while, and you only knew what you knew in terms of feature set, what the customer need was, right? But then you added this app store so that people could do pretty much whatever they wanted to. So now you're getting down to the product development line. You're thinking, we really need like a solid implementation of subscriptions or bundles or whatever it might be. for our merchants' sake, our customers' sake, and for them to not have to go out and vet a third-party app and pay a third-party fee, right? Like
Right.
they're kind of hamstrung in that sense because if they release the app, then people do what we're doing, accusing them of eating the ecosystem. But if they don't, then a major need potentially goes unfulfilled. So I guess I like the way they're approaching this, right? It's kind of
Hmm.
win-win. It doesn't completely starve out the apps from being able to compete in that space. At the same time, it does give merchants what they need on a basic level. Hopefully, it works for them. So we'll see. Maybe they're the new
Yeah.
Microsoft. That would be a great headline. Is Shopify the new Microsoft? Are they just buying up all their competitors and whatever? But no, I don't think so. Hopefully not.
No. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's one of those things like now people who are like, well, and that's how I think app devs need to look at this, is like people who before wouldn't pick Shopify because they're like, well, it doesn't
Yeah.
have bundles and subscriptions native to it or whatever, so I'm going to go with this like Wix e-commerce or whatever that has this already kind of
BigCommerce.
type thing.
BigCommerce. Come on.
Or BigCommerce. I don't want to slam BigCommerce too much today. We talked about them a little bit. I want to spread the wealth when I'm coming to slamming other platforms. But so yeah, when we look at this, where it's like, oh, this comes natively for this, why would I even choose something like Shopify? So Shopify now has eliminated that, right, as as an argument or a reason to not choose Shopify. It's like, well, we do have an app and it's free. You can use it. When you get to the point where that app doesn't do enough, oh, hey, like we actually have a bunch of premium apps that you can start looking at that will offer loads more functionality. So,
Yeah.
if anything, I mean, app devs should be stoked about that. So,
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice too, like as a developer, oftentimes you're in situations where there's some complex system and the vendor will offer like a reference implementation just to show
mhm,
like here in theory is the right way to do this or at least get started with this, right? I don't
mhm.
think Shopify is planning on open sourcing that feature. I would doubt they even wrote it
No, I
like
doubt
an
it.
external app. It's probably an internal thing, right? Whatever. But it'd
Mhm.
be kind of cool if they did. So, Liam, if you're
Yeah,
listening,
I agree. I think
Liam,
that would be cool to see
make
more of
it
that.
happen. That's right.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well, they did. As I say, they did open source a remix app template. Did you see that? That was
Oh,
part of
that's
that
right. I
too.
did see that. Yeah, tell me about that because I'm not really a React guy.
I don't even know if I. This is embarrassing. I don't even know if it made the notes, man. I don't even know.
Oh, Taylor.
It's in here. So I don't know if you played around with Remix at all. To me, at least initially, the on ramp for Remix is pretty heavy when you first get it up and running. But from what I've understood and talked to people, once you do get it up and running, it's pretty awesome to use. So I've built a couple of like basic kind of type sites to just play around with it. But I'm so heavy into theme dev at the moment that I've only played around with it as an idea to build out some landing pages, which now they've got meta objects. We can build those out that way too. So like that's, anyways. But they do have this to where you can create an app and they have a template specific to Remix that you can just run with the CLI. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. Speaking of remixes, I was sitting in my restaurant office the other day. I tend to spend about half my working day at a local BB Bob restaurant working. And I heard the song on the radio. And usually I find their music kind of annoying because it's pop or whatever. It's just stuff I'm not usually interested in. But I was like, I recognize that melody. And it was the hot buttered popcorn. Do, 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 do. That song came out like it was a synth
Oh,
song. It came out in like the 80s or 90s. Can't remember when it was
yeah.
out. But I did Shazam on my phone, and it's by the artist Tove Lo, who I've never heard before. The song is To Die For. Um, and it's that song, and they remixed it. It's a techno remix kind of thing with that. And it's actually a pretty good song. And so my kids, they of course know the Hot Butter Popcorn song because they introduced that to them years ago, right? And so I played
Uh-huh.
it for them, and they thought it was pretty snazzy. So some remixes are
Nice.
good.
Some
It's full
remixes are
circle, right?
good.
Yeah. So
Full
hopefully we
circle.
can get this one. You're like, Taylor's like,
They, they
what is he talking about?
they had
Stay
that
on
in
topic.
mind when they named
Shopify.
it Remix. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, just trying to bring it back in. Just like
It's like, why is he talking about restaurants again? Carl, stop eating.
I love
Anyway,
talking about restaurants, so
me too.
we can do that off air though. So
Yeah.
one day do some like restaurant reviews or whatever. Great places to eat in Columbus and
Speaking
whatnot.
of eating and reviews, it's getting close to lunchtime, and we've been going for 50 minutes. It might be time to bring this to a close. Do you want to talk about any like picks of the week or review of anything you're working on? Anything exciting?
Oh
One
man,
last.
yeah. And so, I mean, as far as like the change log and different things like that, or big picks, that was the big one. Just like all of editions, I feel like this whole this whole this whole episode is going to be just about like amazing big picks that have rolled out. To me, that would be just the number one thing. I mean, we didn't even talk about like plans for the new flex sections and stuff like that with a real true drag and drop, the collective, market connect, all this other fun stuff too, or whatever. So I think I'm really going to stick with, just because I was super jazzed about them releasing and actually updating the docs for the extensions only apps that can be hosted on Shopify, just because um, that specifically is going to save me a lot of headache. Even though I was pretty happy with choosing something like Gadget, Gadget was going to be a good call to go there as well, with making things a lot easier for me as a primarily front end dev. But the fact that now I don't even have to worry about that, that we are going to just be able to use that's huge. So I'm already was researching that, taking a look at that to use for the folks that we are going to have to migrate, because that was actually kind of the holdout why we were like waiting on updating to the new one-page checkout with checkout extensibility and all this fun stuff. So this is awesome. This is great for me. Made me look good with a couple of folks that I'm working for. So
You just get back to your clients. Well, I pulled a few strings at headquarters,
I've talked to the higher ups,
That's awesome. Well, for me, I would say it's not Shopify related per se, but I'm continuing to work on my homepage for Liquid Weekly, the newsletter slash Shopify developer resource, one-stop Shopify shop. That I'm trying to call it. Or I'll probably get in trouble for using that name. But anyway, so I've got this bespoke Rails app that I've written to help me curate the newsletters, and then I'm using Bridgetown, which is a static site generator, to actually build the new web page.
Right.
And I knew eventually where I wanted to go with it was not to like handcraft posts and store them in Bridgetown, but I wanted to pull data in from my curation app, which I call Evergreen because names are hard. Pull that into the thing and generate on the fly, right? And so there's a way you can do that. It actually has, Bridgetown has a way you can make dynamic data builders where you can go to an API or whatever and get JSON back and generate resources in a loop on the fly as you're pulling in this data, which is really cool.
Nice. Very cool.
And you can even, this is the key part, you can even relate resources together, right? So I have issues and articles. And so in Bridgetown, I'm able to go out and I bring in all the issues in and generate those, and bring all the articles in and generate those. But the definitions for them include resources, kind of like in Rails, belongs to, has many, all that sort of stuff, pointing back to each other. So as long as you get the slugs, which is the way it keeps identifiers, correct, it'll just automatically work. And I've had a little bit of trouble with that, and Jared on Discord was super helpful, threw out some hints, and finally got it working over the weekend. Wait, is it the weekend? No, like a day or two ago. It's super slick. So now when I go to generate a new issue, I can regenerate my site. It pulls that in automatically, and then it just works. It's pretty cool.
Dude, that's awesome. That sounds amazing. And again, the site looks awesome. It's great.
Okay. Well, I won't go that far.
I love it. You keep beating yourself up about it, but I love it.
We're going to hire a designer at some point. It's like, okay, like I don't have time to mess with this. Can you read it? All right. Are the colors somewhat coherent? All right. We're good.
Check.
Check. High contrast. Awesome. It's accessible. We're good. Anyway. Well, Taylor, thanks so much. This was great chatting with you. I don't have anyone else to talk to. Being remote.
Always happy to hop on a call, man.
Awesome. And we'll do it again soon. So
yeah, sounds great.
See you, man.